Hello everyone. I hope you all would be hale and hearty. In today's lecture, we are going to start poem number 1, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. He has written this beautiful poem in 1916. And before we start the poem, let's read about the poet first. Robert Lee Frost, whose lifespan is from March 26, 1874 to January 29, 1963. He was an American poet. His work was initially published in England before it was published in the United States. Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural life in New England in the early 20th century, using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. He was fascinated towards the rustic life, so the theme of most of his poems revolve around the rural life and thus emphasizing the social life in the rural scenario. Frost was honored frequently during his lifetime, and he is the only poet to receive 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. He became one of America's rare public literary figures, almost an artistic institution. He was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal in 1960 for his poetic works, and on July 22, 1961, he was named the Poet Laureate of Vermont. So this was a brief description about the poet. Now we will be discussing the theme of the poem. The theme of the poem, The Road Not Taken, revolves around the process of decision making. We know that decision making is a part and parcel of our life. In our lifetime, we have to take n number of decisions, out of which some decisions are too complex or too crucial that they can make our life or mar our life. Why does the decision making process become complex or complicated? The reason is the process becomes complicated when we have numerous or various choices, options or alternatives in front of us, and we have to pick one among them. And in that situation, we most probably face the dilemma or the predicament that which alternative or which option to pick and which one to let go. And for that, we have to follow a process. We usually follow a process to arrive at a good decision. What that process is, that if you have many choices, options or alternatives in front of you, then you need to think deeply, or you need to ponder over each option in your hand, each alternative available for you, and then do the critical analysis. What is the meaning of critical analysis? You need to weigh down the pros and cons. You need to see the positives and negatives. You need to see the advantages and disadvantages of each side or each option. And then based on your appropriate calculations or rational thinking or logical thinking, we need to arrive at a decision that which option or which alternative we want to opt. And when we do such critical analysis and finally reached at a conclusion, then we take our decision. And these decisions are to be implemented in future, which is completely uncertain, which is completely erratic, which is unforeseen. Nobody knows what is going to happen in future. It is unpredictable. So sometimes the decision which we take today and the outcomes comes in future, sometimes our decisions prove right and sometimes it may lead to a wrong decision too. So if our decisions are right, that means we have taken a wise decision or a rational decision in the past. And if our decision proves wrong, comes wrong, then we need to again think a lot. And in this process, now we come to one situation more when we can reverse our decision, and when some decisions are too complicated and complex and crucial that they cannot be reversed. Once they are taken, you have to face the outcome because they cannot be reversed or they are very difficult to be reversed. Let's understand the process of decision making with some examples. Like you have an ardent desire to buy a car and your resources are very limited. So the first question comes in the mind, which company, whether it should be Honda or Mahindra or Maruti or any other company. Second question, which car, whether you want to buy a Verna car or Honda City car, or you can say Swift Desire, Swift VDI, whether it's a Fortuner, whether it is Creta, whether it is Honda Amaze, XYZ. There are so many options available in front of you. Once you make up your mind about the company and which car you want to buy, again then you have to decide which fuel capacity car, whether it would be a petrol car or a diesel car, or which color to buy. Red, black, steel grey, grey, white. So there are so many options available in front of you, and then you have to pick one option amongst all the options. So this is the process of decision making. The second example is, after the students complete their grade 10, the next question comes in their mind is, or the next thing which they have to decide is, which stream they should opt in the senior classes. Whether they want to opt for the medical, non-medical, humanities or arts, or the commerce. And that is a very crucial decision because their future and their career depends on this decision. And this is going to be a very complicated and crucial decision because in future that is going to determine your career. So such kind of the decisions, when we have various options and in one option you have again multiple options, and then you have to just do the critical analysis, then you have to just make the calculations of all the pros and cons or the positives and the negatives, and look your interest, look the other resources, and then finally come to a conclusion. This was the theme of the poem, The Road Not Taken. Now let's start the poem. Stanza 1. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I couldn't travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So let's first discuss the difficult vocab. The word diverged means divided. The phrase yellow wood means a forest in an autumn season. And undergrowth means wild bushes which grow themselves at the sides of the road. So what happened once? The poet was passing through a forest. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and when he was passing through a forest, he reached at a place where the road was divided into two parts. You want to see? Like this. Now he reached at a place where the rod is forked into two parts. Whether you want to pick the rod 1 or whether you want to pick the rod 2. This was a predicament of the poet. he was in a dilemma, or he was in a fix, because the poet is one human being, he is one traveler, and he could not pursue his journey on both the roads at the same time. And sorry, I couldn't travel both. The poet could not opt for both the roads simultaneously, as he was a human being. He could not be available at two different places at the same time, being a traveler. Long I stood, when he was not in a position to make up his mind, when he was facing the dilemma or the confusion. He stood at the place for some time and looked down one as far as I could, and started looking down at one road as far as his eyes could. And finally it appeared to the poet that the road was merged with the bushes, and nothing was visible beyond it. This happens sometimes, that sometimes when we are traveling and the road is isolated, there is no traffic on the road, and our eyes can see a long distance. And then it appears to our eyes that after a certain distance, the road is merged with the roadside bushes, and nothing is visible beyond it. So, this was the stanza 1, that the poet was passing through a forest. He reached at a place where the road was divided into two parts. He was in a predicament, or he was in a fix or dilemma, that which road to choose and which one to let go. As the poet is a human being, he could not travel on both the roads simultaneously. He could not be available at two different places at the same time. So he stood there, looked at both the roads as far as his eyes could, and observed that finally the road appeared to be merged with the roadside bushes, and nothing was visible beyond it. Let's move to stanza 2. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that passing there had warned them really about the same. So meaning of fair is as good as other. Claim means a better option. Wanted wear, had not been used or ready to be used. So now there are two options. There were two options available in front of the poet, and after making certain calculations, he finally took the decision that he is going to opt the road number 2. Just as fair and having perhaps the better claim. He thought that the second road could be a better option for him to pursue his journey or to continue his journey. The reason for opting the second road was that it was grassy and wanted wear. The second road was grassy and it was less worn out. Less worn out means it was travelled by less number of people, and thus the second road appeared a better claim to the poet. And the poet was an adventurous being. He wanted to know, he was eager to know, or he was fascinated to explore that what kind of the challenges are there on the second road, that the less number of people have opted for that road. Why less number of people have chosen that road? He became curious to know. He was inquisitive to know. And thus he decided to take the second road instead of the first road, because it was grassy and it was ready to be used. Though as for that passing there had warned them really about the same. But when he continued his journey on the second road for a certain time period, he realized that the condition of this road is apparently or more or less is the same as the first road, which was not opted by him, or which was not chosen by him. That he realized after continuing or pursuing his journey for some time, that the condition of this road is also the same. That means a good number of people have had walked over this road too. So this was not a peculiar option. This was not a, what you can say, different one. It was more or less same in comparison to the first one. So this is the end of explanation for stanza number 2. Stanza number 3 and stanza number 4 we will be doing in our next video. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 2. Have a great day.